The Sony DCR PC-1 was one of the smallest and lightest digital camcorders of the 1990s, but despite what its model number may lead you to believe, it was not the first of its kind. That was the Sony DCR PC-7, which was the world's smallest and lightest camcorder when it was introduced in 1996, but had an eye-watering price of almost $3,000. That was followed by the PC-10 in 1997 and then the PC-1 in 1998. It had a street price of around $1,500, and PC Magazine said sleek, sophisticated, and small enough to slip into a pocket, the Sony DCR PC-1 is a fine choice. Its tiny size, slight weight, solid image quality, and bevy of features makes it the digital video camera you'll take everywhere and actually use. The PC in the model number stands for Pocket Camcorder, and Sony also referred to these as a passport-sized camcorder. And yes, the DCR PC-1 will fit in your pocket. Sony's quest for further miniaturization of camcorders then led to development of the Micro MV tape format, which both I and Techmoan have done videos about. But these DCR PC models use regular mini DV tapes, which are still pretty easy to find, and thankfully this one opens from the back, so you don't need to take it off a tripod to load a tape. And you got your money's worth in terms of build quality because the entire external shell is made of metal. Even the lens cap has a metal insert, and this thing is covered in stickers galore. Precision color viewfinder, UL listed, 180,000 dots precision LCD monitor, Info Lithium S battery, some kind of warning sticker about electric shock, a sticker reminding you to push the button to open the LCD, another sticker telling you to pull out the viewfinder when using it. This indicates it was made during the first quarter of 1999. It contains technology by Faroudja. And here's an FCC warning sticker. And of course the sticker on the bottom with the model number, DCR PC-1, digital video camera recorder, serial number, made in Japan. Behind this lens cap is a 10 times optical zoom lens with a manual focus wheel and a 30mm lens thread for attaching things like this Sony wide-angle lens, which looks kind of funny because of how large it is compared to the rest of the camcorder, but does work. Behind this door on the front is the FireWire port for connecting to your computer to transfer the video, an LANC jack, which is for remote control, an external stereo microphone jack with plug-in power, and an AV output jack which doubles as a headphone jack. Actually, hold on. How come this Sony camcorder designed from 1998 is able to automatically detect whether you plug in headphones or an AV cable, while this Canon HD camcorder from 2009 makes you manually select it in the menu? On the top, next to the built-in stereo microphone, is an accessory shoe, which you could use to mount an external microphone or a light or some other kind of accessory, although it's only a cold shoe, not a hot shoe, so it would not be able to supply power to those accessories. On this side below the LCD is the built-in speaker, an S-video output behind this cap for better video quality than using the composite output, and aforementioned Info Lithium S battery, which is not as common as the other types, but you can still find replacements for it. On the back surrounding the recording button is the power switch with camera and VTR modes, and buttons for manual exposure, fader, and backlight compensation. On this side is the variable zoom lever, a button for taking still photos, although that's not taking photos to a memory stick or any other kind of flash memory. It actually takes the photos to tape. A button for manual focus, using this ring around the lens, and the Sony exclusive start-stop mode switch, because they were kind of pushing this thing at the time where you should only take video scenes that are 5 seconds long.
Frame this scene and shoot it 5 seconds. Then stop, frame the next scene, and record.
Hold the scene for only 5 seconds. That seems pretty quick.
Well, unless there's some specific ongoing action you want, 5 seconds per scene is a reliable rule of thumb for good results. For example, this camcorder has a 5-second recording function which automatically stops the camera after 5 seconds. Recording this way helps you produce a fast-paced series of scenes that are fun to watch.
It also has an anti-ground shooting mode, which sounds kind of funny, but that was designed to avoid the common problem of people not knowing they accidentally left it recording, and thus recording a long section of tape with nothing more than the camcorder pointing at the ground. So in this mode, in order to record, you would need to hold the button down for as long as you wanted to record, and as soon as you let go, it would stop. Unfortunately, I find these Sony Pocket camcorders to be really uncomfortable and awkward to use, because you naturally want to hold it like this, like a pistol grip, but you can tell by the position of the hand strap, it's not designed to work that way. You're supposed to put your hand in like this. And then when you do that, you naturally want to curl your fingers around the top, but you can't do that because then you'd be blocking the microphone. So you're only supposed to hold it up to here, which makes it very awkward to hold. This is just not a natural position for holding a camcorder in your hand for any length of time. So what I do instead is sometimes hold it in my other hand, but then the problem with that is these touch-sensitive buttons behind where the LCD opens are a little bit too touch-sensitive, and it's very easy to accidentally trigger them with your finger. But thankfully, like they boasted on that sticker, the 2.5-inch LCD is very good quality, with a nice sharp image and vivid colors. And it does flip around to face the front, but if you prefer, you can close it and instead use the viewfinder. It has a color viewfinder, although this camcorder is doing a fantastic job of focusing more on the dirt that's on it than its actual image. Well, you can rotate it to face the front, but there's obviously something wrong with this one because it's not flipping the image. And in fact, you can just keep going and going all the way around. So there must be something broken with this LCD. It does feel a little bit loose. In fact, if you look at that big gash on the corner there, I think this camcorder was dropped. But one thing you may have noticed that the camcorder does not have is an input for an AC adapter. That's because you cannot charge the battery on the camcorder itself. You have to take it off and put it on a separate battery charger, the Sony AC VF10. And if you want to run the camcorder on AC power, you get this battery dongle, which fits into the space that the battery normally goes, and then plugs into this jack on the battery charger. So if you're interested in getting a DCR PC1, you should make sure it comes with these accessories. I also found this really janky looking aftermarket accessory power battery, California Silicon Valley technology, manufactured with European quality. But on the back it says it was made in China. Now with golden contact tips. Notice it doesn't say gold plated, just golden. Judging by that stock photo of a wedding, this is probably almost as old as the camcorder itself. I tore it open and you can really see how yellowed that packaging is. Now let me try to charge this battery and see if it has any life left. Nope, no dice. When I put it on the charger, it thinks about it for a few seconds and then immediately gives up. And when I put it on my multimeter, it reads 0 volts. So this thing is deader than a hammer. The menu options are largely identical to other Sony Handycams of the era. It does have a 16:9 widescreen mode, although as you can see, it just cuts off the top and bottom of the image, so it's not really worth using. It also supports a wireless remote control. You can zoom in and zoom out and start and stop recording. It also has steady shot image stabilization, which works pretty well, but no night shot. That feature was added a year later on the DCR PC3, along with a memory stick slot for taking photos and the ability to use the AV jacks as inputs as well as outputs for digitizing analog video sources. But one feature this does have, which was dropped from later Handycam models, is cassette memory. That was a small integrated circuit memory chip which they added to the Mini DV cassette. They had some with up to 16K of memory, although these only have 4K. And that's accessed through these pins here, which are just normally plastic knockout plugs on tapes which do not have cassette memory, which is the vast majority of them. But on tapes which do have cassette memory, that allows the camcorder to keep track of the times and dates of all the scenes you recorded, allowing you to much more easily access a previously recorded scene, rather than just have to manually rewind until you come across it. And you can also add titles to the scenes you recorded, as well as for the tape itself. There you can see the metal fingers which contact the cassette memory pins on the tape, and it's designed to allow it to read the cassette memory data even before the tape is loaded into the camcorder. So if I insert this tape which has the cassette memory feature, as soon as I close the hatch, you can see the cassette memory logo appear as well as the title of the tape. I named it after the camcorder I originally used to record it. And here are the cassette memory features. You can search for a specific scene, you can erase the titles, you can display the titles, you can change the tape title, and you can erase all of the data on the cassette memory chip. This camcorder had a tape in it when I found it at the thrift store. It has footage of some kind of Caribbean parade with a whole lot of booty shaking going on. Unfortunately, I think it has a cracked gear in its mechanism because when I rewind or fast forward, you can hear it making a clicking noise. Yeah, it's not supposed to sound like that. Nonetheless, there was about a 1 minute blank section at the end of that tape. That's what that blinking red light means. It's warning you that you only have a few minutes of tape left. So I took the opportunity to record some new test footage using the Sony DCR PC-1, and I'll show that to you now. I only have about a minute of tape left, so this is just going to be a quick test of a Sony DCR PC-1 Mini DV tape camcorder from 1999. It has 10 times optical zoom. There is no night shot function on this camcorder, but it still does pretty well under normal indoor lighting. I turned off my bright studio light. There's the charger for it and the original battery, which no longer holds a charge. In low light, it does pretty well, except the image gets quite grainy. There's no memory stick slot for taking still photos, but it can take still frames to tape with 5 seconds of audio. This used to be a Chuck E. Cheese, not anymore. Yeah, you belong here. I don't think anybody's gonna belong here for quite a while, unfortunately. For a camcorder that was introduced in 1998, I think that video quality is actually really good, although the built-in microphone does pick up some noise from the tape mechanism, which was always a problem with these compact models. Nonetheless, if you do happen to come across one of these Sony DCR PC series Handycams for around $10 at a thrift store like I did, I think they're still pretty fun to play around with and use. My favorite is actually the end of the line, the DCR PC55, which was the last model they sold from 2005 to 2006, and is actually almost as small as their Micro MV camcorders, despite using a much larger tape. Its image quality is actually not as good as the old DCR PC1 from 1998 because of how much they had to downsize the lens and optics. But otherwise, it's a beautiful little camcorder. It fits your hand perfectly. It feels really well built and well engineered. And it even has an accessory shoe for adding a spotlight or a microphone. I did a full review and test of this model back in 2014, so I'll include a link to that video if you want to watch it. Unfortunately, your chances of finding a working one today are pretty slim. Even mine has developed the common problem where nothing comes through the image sensor except for some occasional lines and static, even though I've never dropped it or subjected it to any other rough treatment. That's where even among handycams you could say they don't make them like they used to.